How do some people shape the course of history without ever being recorded in it? History remembers crowns and titles. It remembers emperors, kings and conquerors, names carved in stone, faces painted in gold. But history is also shaped by people it barely notices. Today, we explore a quieter truth: the women who ruled entire worlds without acknowledgement. Not always from thrones, not always with armies, but through influence, strategy, survival, and unseen authority. This is a quiet exploration of invisible power. When we imagine rulers of the past, we imagine men standing at the center of events, commanding battles, signing decrees, claiming glory. But power has never lived only in visible places. Across civilizations, women shaped empires from behind veils, walls, and private chambers. They negotiated marriages that ended wars, advised rulers whose names eclipsed their own, controlled households that functioned like governments, passed down beliefs, customs, and loyalties that lasted longer than any reign. Their authority did not always look like power, but it was. In many ancient societies, women were legally invisible. They could not vote. They could not rule openly. They were excluded from official records. And yet, they were everywhere. In royal courts, queens and consorts controlled access to the ruler. Who could speak? Who could influence decisions? Who was trusted? And who quietly disappeared from favor? Power often flows through proximity, not position. A whispered sentence could matter more than a shouted command. A private suggestion could change the fate of nations. In dynastic systems, succession was everything. And succession often depended on women. They raised heirs, chose tutors, shaped values, taught loyalty or resentment. A future ruler's worldview was often formed not by generals, but by the woman who raised them. History celebrates the ruler. It rarely asks who shaped the ruler. Beyond palaces, women governed daily life. They managed households that were economic centers. They controlled food, labor, rituals, and social bonds. They maintained networks of trust that held communities together. In many cultures, inheritance and alliances passed quietly through maternal lines. Even when official records refuse to acknowledge it, power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it survives by remaining unseen. In times of crisis, this invisible power became impossible to ignore. When wars took men away, women kept societies functioning. They organized resources, protected families, preserved traditions that held communities together when structures collapsed. History calls these moments decline or transition. But for many women, it was leadership without recognition. Some women ruled indirectly for decades, as regents behind young rulers, as advisors whose counsel shaped policy, as religious figures whose authority crossed borders, as symbols whose presence stabilized entire systems. Their influence was real, but carefully minimized, because history is not neutral. It records what it values. And for much of human history, visible power was valued over quiet control. Even when women ruled openly, their authority was often reframed. Strategic decisions became emotional reactions. Firm leadership became manipulation. Strength became an exception that needed explaining. History did not simply forget these women, it reinterpreted them. But influence does not vanish just because it goes uncredited. Customs survive, institutions endure, ideas persist. Many of the systems that shaped civilizations, marriage alliances, religious traditions, social hierarchies, were maintained and transmitted by women whose names were never written down. History remembers the moment of conquest. It forgets the centuries of stability that followed. This is why so many historical mysteries involve women: unmarked graves, missing records, unattributed achievements. Silence is not absence, it is often erasure. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all is this: many women did not seek recognition. Visibility was dangerous. Open authority invited punishment. Survival required subtlety. So power learned to move quietly, through tradition, through teaching, through patience, through time. History, as we know it, is a record of what was allowed to be seen. But beneath it lies another history, one of invisible architects, uncredited rulers, and silent forces. Women who shaped entire worlds without ever being recorded in them. History is full of voices that were never written down, stories waiting in the margins, hidden between the lines. In the next stories, we'll continue listening to the echoes history tried to forget.